You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live. Hello and welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast, something a little bit different. You and me sat together in person, and also for long-time fans will remember this is the same place that we filmed the first episode of the podcast.
Where it all began.
Ash was here then, not me, and I was sat down there on the floor eating frazzles, I think.
Your dog was a lot slimmer back then.
The dog was a lot slimmer,
Let himself go.
Let himself go. He's literally sat right here on the floor, so hopefully he's well behaved. Why did we go all the way down to Cornwall to film a podcast when we could have done it on the internet?
It seemed too much faff to get. We wanted to do a special podcast for
Get out of it.
1982, and it seemed too much faff to get four of them together in a room in Birmingham, and I'd have to book the room.
Might have to pay.
We might have to pay for the room. Yeah. There'd probably be a little bit of your fat dog's licking me here.
Sit down, please.
I think me and Stanley, it is Stanley, isn't it?
It is Stanley, yeah.
I think I've lost weight and he's gained weight. I think we always have to be the same weight collectively. So I'm always worried a little bit that we have plans and then somebody will cry off at the last minute for whatever reason. And we'd already got a captive audience in terms of, and we've already got 4 European Cup winners already captured because they'd committed to going down to Cornwall. I think the biggest mistake that I made, and I'm not saying it is a mistake because we had a great time, as we're going to tell you about in a bit, but the biggest mistake I made was thinking, they're bound to be doing something in Northfield or in Stourbridge, aren't they? Yeah. In a few weeks' time. They're going to be on tour relentlessly. I mean, we'll talk about this properly, but one of my highlights of the trip was when we turned up at this rugby club where the 4 legends were doing a question and answer session. And we wanted to make sure it just ran smoothly, logistically and stuff like that. And we thought it was going to be this little quiet private room, and then we get there and there's 100 drunk rugby fans singing "I Want to Go Home."
And I'm thinking, me too.
And Dad's thinking "I want to go home" as well. But all's well that ends well. I think by the time this goes out, you'll have obviously edited and made the final product look slick. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah, I thought it was really, really interesting. It's the most time I've ever spent with you.
Yeah.
In my entire life.
We had a good chat, didn't we, in the car on the trip down. Tell you what, so I was filming, obviously I was filming all through the weekend, little bits of setting up and car journey down, that kind of stuff. So let's rewind. I'm trying to do this in my head because the timeline is a mess. I'm going to rewind back to the Friday before we went of me setting up all my stuff, play a bit of the journey, and then we'll come and jump in and out to give a bit of context. So this is what I'm currently faced with on Friday afternoon, packing up all my bags. Got my big camera bag, a lighting bag, some lights, lighting stands, tripods. A friend of the show, and a name you might recognise in John Inslee, is currently on his way to my house right now with another 3 microphones, an extra camera, extra tripods. So it's a pretty big operation.
The big one.
Thanks for that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Until tomorrow morning when Matt Kendrick will arrive. Lots to do still, and looking forward to tomorrow.
Can I sing my song first?
Go on then.
I've been thinking about this on the way here. Every week we follow the boys in Claret and Blue. We're even going to Cornwall to bring a pod for you.
Good.
The Villa boys from Aston, we travel near and far. Clotted cream and pasties and Dennis Mortimer.
Stick Troyer in, and then it's still another 3 hours after that, isn't it, pretty much?
Is it?
Are we lost, is my question.
We're not lost exactly, we're just trying to locate where we need to be. It's functional.
I didn't know we'd gone back to 1982 as well.
Well, the sign needs a bit of painting, doesn't it? It ain't the one where Lenny shoots his adverts, is it, this one? Hey?
Tony Morley and Sid Cowans turn up and just kind of like sit down and chat to us as if they're mates, and obviously it's before my time, even the 1982 European Cup's before your time even.
Yeah.
You kind of speak to them all the time, your phone book's full of people, but to spend time with them like that is still special.
they're just normal blokes, aren't they? Normal blokes who, you know, had magic in their boots. You know, went to the kind of pinnacle of club football and didn't really carry any kind of ego.
I don't know how to say this without like being offensive, but do you get like bored of talking about it? It's 40 years. Like, as much as we're making a big deal for the 40th, Villa fans talk about this on the 39th and the 38th and the 37th anniversary. And he kind of said, well, if we hadn't have achieved what we'd achieved, people would kind of just have forgotten about us by now, and no one's interested in Tony Morley, who played X amount of games for Villa but didn't really win anything. The fact that they did what they did 40 years later, we're still chatting to them, and that is still special to them, I think.
When me and Tony Morley, I met him a few times, interviewed him a few times, been to a couple of events, but he kind of greeted me like a kind of long, you know, I think he said, "Oh, you've lost some weight, fatty," or something like that, and gave me a hug, which was nice, but
I didn't know that.
We obviously sat down with them, and we're in this beefeater next to Truro premiering.
Good onion rings.
It was like being out for dinner with your nan, wasn't it? Yeah. It's like if you went out with your nan and her friends while they were deciding what to order off the menu.
Oh, yeah.
So they're just sitting there, like, and we're on a really tight schedule, thinking we've got to get to this room before the main event on the night. We need an hour and a half, an hour to make sure we've got a good chance of settling them down. And they're just like, they are like some old folk at the seaside, which is exactly what they were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Their Q&A, the Cornwall Lions, who were good to us, to be fair, to try and get that in. We kind of piggybacked on their event, and they were starting at 6:30. So we said, if we get there at 5, that gives us 90 minutes to kind of have everything ready and film and pack up, get out of their way and leave. So I'm looking at my watch thinking, like, it's 3 o'clock now, so if we get there at 4, that gives me half an hour to get all this stuff sorted and test it all out. That's probably all right. And they're going, oh, you know what, should we have some food then before we go? And it's like, I know that I've just driven 4 hours, but in my head I'm thinking, we've got to do this podcast, like, this is more important. And they're going, oh, steak and ale pie, that sounds good. And fish and chips, Gordon, fish and chips? And he's going, oh yeah, fish and chips, that sounds good to me. So the waitress comes over and goes, oh, by the way, gents, there's no fish today. So I'm thinking, as much as we both had a laugh about it, I'm thinking, I just spent 20 minutes deciding on fish and chips.
But then there's another 10 minutes over whether they could still order the salmon. Salmon, does salmon class as fish?
Doing stuff online, if you push it back half an hour, nothing's affected. You just log onto your laptop slightly later. This event had a deadline that we had to be out of there by 6:30, so the longer it takes them to order fish and chips, the less time we get to speak to them.
It's one of them ones where we've hijacked the event.
Yeah, I know.
So we can't be calling the shots, but equally to make it worth our while to get the podcast that we need and the video that we need, we've got to have it happen on schedule.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those ones where we had to use our charm.
The benefits of going to do something like this in person is the stuff that comes with it. You don't get that kind of experience when you just say, oh yeah, log on to this link at 6 o'clock and you chat for half an hour and they disappear. It's that personable thing that you get with doing stuff like this in person, and
I think it's like going on safari rather than going to the zoo. I think Sid and Tony did they have beef lasagna in the end?
Lasagna,
Then Dennis Mortimer just strolls past.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, there's Dennis there. He's walking along, and he's got his big white beard. And I think Tony Morley says, oh, he's like Captain Birdseye. Perhaps he can get us some fish or something, some such nonsense. So,
and to be fair, like again, the thing you don't get with when you're doing it over StreamYard and stuff is, first of all, you wouldn't have had them together, and we'll talk about the podcast in a second. But that chemistry between them, but that little kind of pre-chat. As much as I'm nervous about getting set up, I know that once we do get going, they've obviously got they're obviously friends, but they've obviously got a report on the day, there's chemistry, they're joking around and stuff. So I'm kind of also thinking, the sooner we get them, the sooner we start, the more good stuff we can capture for the podcast.
So we've got 3 of them in Truro. We know that 3 of them are definitely in Cornwall, so we know that it's game on to a degree.
That's true, yeah.
So the phone's been passed around with various people speaking to Alan Evans about what time we should be there. I end up taking the phone, I think it's Tony Morley's mobile, and saying to Alan Evans, I don't know whether you know about this, but rather than turn up at 7 o'clock, could we get you there at 5 o'clock because we want to do this podcast? So grudgingly, he says he'll get there.
I mean, we must have said that. Somebody must have told him before that we were trying to get him, though, because the other 3 knew. I don't know. Loads of bags, more so than anything I've ever carried to any shoot ever. Kind of like this big donkey with all stuff on our backs and everything. Walk up to the door. The door's locked. That's annoying as well. He's just there, people singing, these rugby songs, and Dave Wicks is from down Cornwall. He goes, oh, good Cornish singing and all that. I'm just like, read the room, Dave. Like, I'm nervous here. Like, I'm worried that we're going to get in there and it's our functioning pub. Like, I think we said if we started at 5, that gives us an hour and a half. We started at 20 past or 25 past, did we, I think?
Yeah, we started at 20 past 5, 4 chairs neatly laid out.
30 guests to sit in.
3 guests, one of them vacant, so I ended up playing Alan Evans for the first 15-20 minutes. I thought we'd slowly eased into a rhythm, and then all of a sudden it's musical chairs, Alan Evans turns up and nicks my seat. But the good thing that I liked was we'd had 3 or 4 hours, or give or take, in the company of the other 3, and I've met them all before, albeit very briefly or in different, separately before, but the rapport was already there, and I didn't know kind of what that vibe would be like with Alan Evans, but he quickly took his place in there. Him and Tony Morley seemed to have a good kind of rapport, and it just seemed to flow. To be honest, I think we could have got 3 hours, 4 hours. I think we could have kept them there all day talking.
Jumping ahead towards the end of the podcast, it kind of did feel like, it's 6:30 now. Like, sorry to interrupt everyone, but like we've kind of got to wrap it up now, which was a shame, because it was like they were just getting into a flow, kind of an hour and a half in.
What made me laugh? It was about 27 minutes past 6, and kind of Dave Wicks, the organiser, who's invested a lot of time and energy into sorting this out, kind of wanders over, not quite tapping his watch, but giving that kind of vibe. And I'm thinking, I need to ask a question to wrap all this up. And I just hear, and see out the corner of my eye, Dennis Mortimer start saying...
We've spoken a lot about winning the European Cup. Probably we need to go back a season and really look at winning the league, because that enabled us now. That gave us the platform then to go and play in the European Cup final.
I'm thinking, Dennis, we've got 3 minutes here. I've got to try and prompt a really nice kind of outro type kind of question and response, and I'm thinking, no, we can't go through a 42 game season now. Another one of my favourite moments, just because I like the chaos of it all, was when you placed the European Cup replica just perfectly between 2 of the guests. As it gets nearer to 6:30 and guests start arriving, they're all coming in, it's getting a little bit noisier, and the bar that we're filming in started to get a little bit busier. And some fans just come up and pick this cup up and have the photo taken of it, and it just
didn't put it back where it was.
It just makes me laugh. Can't get in. Never the professional, ain't you? Where's the bloody lights? You can have the double if you want. I'm knackered. We ain't going to film the intro still, have we?
This much is true. Miriam Margulies' biography to read before bed. Explain yourself.
What can I say? How can you explain it? Listen, I love Aston Villa. I've got my complete record book of Aston Villa as well, but I've had a day full of football. I just need a bit of Miriam, just a bit of light relief from Miriam. Just don't judge me, for God's sake. It's been good, actually. It's been a really good laugh, really good fun. It has felt like an absolute proper whirlwind. We're on the road very early. I can't remember the last time I'd have had to set my alarm clock this early. That's not background noise, that is birds tweeting.
It's a very crisp morning, I would describe it as.
It's very crisp, yeah, it's freezing, you're right, yeah. So yeah, we're on our way. That's all I'm going to say, I'm knackered.
Come on then.
Little pit stop at McDonald's very quickly. Now we're stuck behind this truck.
Don't, Dan, because you know what I'm like. I just want to go home. I mean, to be fair to the bloke, I'm a bit like that when I'm doing a 3-point turn in my Astra, so I can't complain too much. I wouldn't fancy reversing it, but do it on a different day, mate.
I'm trying to find a word to describe it on the way back, and I think I landed on orchestrated chaos. We all set it up. We knew the venue. We knew what it was going to be like. We wanted those 4 to chat amongst themselves rather than it be, Q&A. But it's going to be chaos, isn't it? You're asking 4, I was going to say middle-aged blokes, but they're even older than that. 4 people who don't know how to record a podcast, to film a podcast and know what to do. And there are times when they're talking over each other. I think Sid Cowens is looking at us and talking off camera. He said at one point, which I love, he said something like, "Is this not boring now? We've gone long enough. Are you not bored now?" And I'm thinking one of the best ever Villa players ever is kind of sitting there going, 1982, boring, mate. Let's move on.
You want it to be just super slick and stuff. I would rather it being the time that we spent down, the time that me and you spent down, chatting all the way there, putting the world to rights and all the way back, being in the company, in the natural environment with Sid and with Tony for most of the day. And still what I think is a very, very good, but very, very natural podcast.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that than us be closed off in a quiet room in Birmingham for 4 hours. It's all very staged, it's all very forced.
Yeah.
There'll be a few kind of wrinkles around the edges, and there'll be a few things where you're going to have to be kind of, or have already been very, very kind of shrewd in the edit, tidying things up. But I just thought it was, really good. I know I'm not busy mates with Sid and Tony, but for 3 or 4 hours, I kind of felt like I was.
Well, at one point you went up to Tony and said, "Come on, Grandad, let's have a photo." And I was thinking the disrespect to that first of all, but it wasn't disrespectful in the moment.
But he'll give it back as well.
Exactly,
do you know what I mean? And it was.
I didn't know he called you fatty early on in the day, which to be fair, he set the precedent, didn't he, for that?
But like Sid as well, and we know that he's not been very well, but it was great to see him kind of
into life,
falling into the company of his old mates. And it's hard to get a word in edgeways with Tony Morley, Dennis Mortimer, Alan Evans, and throwing me into the mix as well in terms of people who could talk. It's hard to get a word in edgeways at the best of times, but I felt there was enough involvement from him. You could just see, kind of like I say, that little glint in his eye. That
kind of second half of the podcast is how I envisaged it, to kind of just go, right, let's hit record, sit and chat amongst yourselves, we'll sit back and kind of take notes, whatever. And there was moments when I think Dennis Mortimer probably was the best at it. He was almost asking questions on our behalf, almost saying to Sid, "Sid, how did you remember it?" Or what did you think of this? And it's that's how I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be natural, and I don't think you see that kind of thing done very often for podcasts, that you kind of let your guests just talk. You've always got an interview, and I know you're talking off camera, but it was important to try and get that natural side across, and hopefully we did that. We're
going to lay it on thick about how far it was and how knackered we are, and how frustrated I was when that lorry was doing a U-turn in the petrol station and I wanted to get home. Don't, Dan, because you know what I'm like. I just want to go home. But it was great. It was really, really great.
Thank you for watching the Claret podcast and all your continued support as always, and we'll be back. I don't know when this is coming out, so I don't know when we'll be back.
Probably a week after this.
Yeah, we'll be back a week later than this, and hopefully with more interviews throughout the summer.
You're a big lad, ain't you? Get off me, just
get off now.
Just poured me in the nuts.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.